Definition of sex for me would be like just the act of
Yeah.
physical
Penis
act
and vagina.
Yeah.
People talking about being intimate with somebody, and they use that
as
a term for sex.
Yeah.
But I'd actually wager that the majority of sex that I've had in my life hasn't involved a huge amount of intimacy at all. And moving that into a more connected and conscious, loving act is a whole different experience. Welcome back to Authentik Union Podcast. I'm Jocasta,
I'm Krzysiek.
and today let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Okay, baby, let's talk about sex.
Okay.
Sex or lovemaking? That
Difference.
I would impromptu chiming in. So sex, definition of sex for me would be like just the act of physical
Penis
act.
and vagina.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
any other
sexual encounters.
Yeah. And lovemaking is all about, it's still physical and very much so pleasurable, and the focus is on pleasure as well as on connection, right? Yeah.
So for me, I think the primary difference between the two is intimacy.
Yeah.
And with lovemaking. Yeah, it's funny because I think I've heard all my adult life people talking about being intimate with somebody, and they use that as a term for sex.
Yeah.
But I'd actually wager that the majority of sex that I've had in my life hasn't involved a huge amount of intimacy at all. And moving that into a more connected and conscious, loving act is a whole different experience.
I love that, conscious loving act.
It's funny because we're raised in a society where sex sells. It's pushed onto our youth. It's shrouded in need and desire, and importance is stoked so much on your ability to perform. I certainly feel that from a lot of my life as a woman, it was the more you are prepared to do, the better you are. There is definitely pressure for things like anal sex or oral sex and literally just engaging. I certainly got into a position with my ex-husband where there was absolutely no love and no intimacy exchanged in the act at all. And I think that the way that society approaches sex at large, it really deprives our collective awareness of what a magnificently powerful and precious thing lovemaking can be. It should be, in my eyes.
Very often it's it's a little bit of sidetrack maybe, but it just occurred to me that very often I would experience sex, not lovemaking, big distinction, as a transactional thing, like in the codependent relationship, like, okay, I'm gonna give you sex if you give me this, and kind of like in this, it's very often I feel romantic relationships are based on this kind of codependency, that there is that need, there is that greed for intimacy, but if you cannot get the intimacy, then you kind of settle for this physical experience of uniting two people, which is, the basis of this is not only procreation, but in spiritual sense is the union, of the bodies,
Absolutely.
It's like, and then you can say that you have masculine and feminine, which is obviously in both genders, but as a symbol and archetype, you have masculine and feminine, and then you have the third. 1 + 1 is not 2, 1 + 1 is 3, because you have the third component, which is the union. And so that's like even in Christianity, you have the masculine, feminine, and the Holy Spirit, which is the essence of Trinity. And also that symbol fleur de lis, which fascinates me, and the shrouded history of that symbol, because one of the meaning is the meaning of Trinity. You have two kind of petals going this way, and one kind of it's like a fruit of the union of masculine and feminine. And and as this transactional activity is pleasurable, but also as any pleasure, it kind of gets us out of presence with our emotions and our inner state, and we kind of try to regulate that as a in a means of physical discharge, physical release, and what it does over time, it creates a cycle of expectation and disappointment. Because even when you fulfill that, then if you just kind of after sex, because you think that this is only way is going to make you feel better, then over time you will build that expectation, and the disappointment will come afterwards, because there will be another desire, you will get into that cycle of desire.
And quite often the actual, especially I believe for women, the desire for the act itself is subconsciously rooted in the desire for connection, and so then obviously having sex that is devoid of intimacy and devoid of true connection can actually make that longing and that desire intensified, and it can lead to real sadness,
disappointment.
Absolutely. And I certainly felt that for me it felt like a wifely duty when I was married, that something that I had to provide, and that makes it sound as though I was pressured, but in actual fact, if either one of us were the one that was pressuring for sex, it was more me, and that was because of societal pressure coupled with my own childhood experiences. My own self-worth was so acutely wrapped up with my sexual activity, and whatever was going on in my marriage, I always felt that, well, if he's physically wanting me, then he still wants me. So it was some sort of consolation to an extent as well. But I think on the whole, that whole approach and society's approach at large, it really does rob us of the sacred and divine nature of our sexual energy. It is core creation energy. It is
absolutely.
the most powerful energy
it's the same
that we
energy
possess.
what creativity is, like in any sense.
Absolutely.
Because it's creation, like you're saying. And coming back, sorry for interrupting you, but coming back to this, this notion of craving sex, or physical intimacy, let's put it this way, physical closeness, but it's not intimacy really, without honesty and without fully being present and being engaged and caring, enthusiastic and caring and loving, but very often in my relationships, that would be the like a end of each of my previous relationships. It would be like that was the last kind of thread that held me and my partner together, because it was like, you could say that most reliable thing that would keep two people together, because it was transactional, it was like okay, if you take that sex away, do you really want to be in that relationship? No, if you cannot feel fulfilled, you cannot feel understood fully, you kind of feel like you need to hide certain parts of yourself because you are afraid that they will be not accepted. And there is that very enticing thing, which is sex, which can actually keep you in a relationship if you're even not happy, because it gives you that false hope of that, oh, if we keep doing that, then
And this is going
maybe
well,
we'll
then
be
maybe
okay.
we have got a chance, maybe we can work everything
yeah,
else out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, again, with the psychology of the average woman, and I know that I'm sort of stereotyping here, and I know that it's different from person to person, but basic biology, women are more likely to get emotional fulfillment from that act, and to take it as reassurance that things are going well on a sort of deeper level, I think, from many men.
I have plenty of feminine energy when it comes to sensitivity and as you know, the notion of acceptance and rejection and self-judgment have been major players in my life. So for me, it's, as a sensitive person, regardless of the gender, it's
can
the
relate
same.
to that a lot.
I can relate to that a lot, and it's it's always been very emotional for me. Emotional connection.
It's just really interesting. You sort of
love making.
It's really interesting you sort of having that stance and that perspective yourself, as actually really understanding and relating to that from the woman's perspective, because actually, even though I was the one that brought that up, for much of my life, as you know, I experienced sex addiction a few years back, and I was the opposite actually. I found myself very matter of fact about the act itself. To me, it was no more intimate than playing squash with somebody or kicking a ball around with them. It was something that I found pleasurable and had a certain level of disconnect from, which I think is something that a lot of men could relate to as well. But it's funny because I'm somebody that would advocate for somebody's body autonomy massively, and I do genuinely believe that a person should do whatever they want with their own body, within reason, obviously, without infringing the inalienable rights of other people.
Without causing harm to others.
Exactly. But at the same time, understanding the sacred nature of lovemaking and understanding the energy exchange that happens there. It's not just about the energy in the moment. We also, when we make love with somebody or we have sex with somebody, there is so much energy exchange there that we are literally taking on the energy of our sexual partners. And it's something that I really wish was taught more, and that our young people would have a deeper understanding of the sacred nature of their own sexuality and the acts itself. And I think there's also a lot of pressure on youth in general to have sex, to tick that box, to having done it for the first time, to regularly engage, and there has been a certain element of pressure to be seen as to be active, to be seen as to be enjoying it. I certainly know throughout my own past, I've often felt the need to appear more satisfied than I have been. The whole faking orgasms is such a thing that is really quite normal for women, and it's actually recognised that I think it's 70% of women will almost never orgasm through penetrative sex, and that is just a fact. And certainly there's this big pressure on men as well to be the performer, to be the expert lover.
Absolutely. I could feel that definitely, and in the past, and as you know, in our relationship, I could feel certain I would just say pressure because we we are something else. You know, there is no games, and we know that we don't want to play games with each other.
Yeah.
And if there is something going on under the surface of the conscious mind, what we are afraid to talk about, then at some point we will talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because that's our nature of our relationship, and that's the intimacy, right?
Absolutely.
Like self-honesty and honesty with the other. But definitely it was I don't know if you want to go to details
I don't
on
mind,
this
I'm
one.
easy.
It was definitely something that was playing on my mind, you know, like like you saying that you never had orgasm through the penetrative sex.
Yeah.
And so in my mind was it looked like we are in this divine union, so certainly it's going to happen now, you know, for us, you know.
Yeah.
And and it has, right? But until that point it was certain like a self kind of imposed pressure, right, on myself as well. And I wanted to touch on something earlier on, I think. Yes. So we actually, with this pressure of the, you know, that youth, young people want to appear being engaged in sexual activities, and you know, you see the way teenage girls are dress and things like that, and obviously boys as well, and pornography and things like very easy to be addicted to, because it's like such a boost of dopamine, right? It's like any other substance, really.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe even stronger because it just works on your whole body, kind of like arouses you.
As a side note, there's two addictions that are the hardest to kick, and that is sex addiction and food addiction. And it's because it is not healthy for either of those addictions for you to go completely cold turkey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we with this we are circling back to actually to this discrimination between what comes from the mind and what comes from the heart, and I'm referring to what you were talking about, being more aware and conscious who you are engaging with sexually, because if you are not happy with someone but I like their body, you know, and but how are you feeling afterwards, you know? How are you feeling after your love making is done, or even if that's not love making, just like a sex copulation. How are you feeling after, you know? Because that's very often kind of like a litmus paper of whether you actually should be doing that with that person, you know, whether your energies match.
And the energy you're taking on from
You're
not
taking
just
on,
them but their sexual partners, their
exactly.
previous sexual partners.
Yeah.
All that energy is stored and it transfers.
Because to me now, and obviously this is like you know, coming to into our union, it's been like a kind of up leveling. I don't really like that term, but in terms of self-awareness and self-acceptance and anything that is connected to individuation and self-actualization, all of that has been like just kind of like shoot to the stars, you know.
Absolutely.
And so there's after we make love, I feel invigorated and I feel like you know, energized. And
take on the world.
Yeah, exactly. And in the past, very often I would feel, you know, opposite. I would feel depleted and just, you know, like kind of like after masturbation, you know, like yes, you have an orgasm, but then you feel like, ooh, that doesn't really feel good. You know, that how you feel in your own body, in your energy, feel like, oh, was it worth it really? Yeah, it's kind of like this. Yeah.
You feel really anticlimactic, can't you? Yeah. And I think it's important to, like, orgasms are really, really good for us. I think that's something that we ought to be expressing as well and highlighting, that physiologically, spiritually, emotionally, orgasms are typically really good for us, but
I feel fucking good.
yeah, and they feel amazing too, so win-win. But I do feel that so many of us would benefit from bringing more conscious awareness into our sexual experiences with our partners and with ourselves, actually. And why am I doing this? Do I want to be doing this?
Yeah, what's the motto? Yeah, what's the motivation? Because very often, even that's like the shadow behavior of mine that I've been working on has been connected to that expectation and disappointment when, for example, when I have expectation that we'll be making love, but circumstances don't allow that, or you don't feel like in the moment, and so
interestingly, like my ego felt the need to put that's only happened once. I've still got some work to do there as well.
Do you know what? When I said that, I thought that you're gonna be offended that I'm telling you that you are.
It's still that self-worth, isn't it? Still that self-worth connected to that.
You want love making less than me.
First time happened in my life ever, by the way. It's just completely insatiable. What can I say? Too far?
So that expectation, and so it's that. What's the motivation? When the motivation comes from the body and it feels like it's like a celebration, then that's perfect for me. But very often in between those celebratory motivations, let's say, or moments when I really wanted, really felt like love making, there were many of those that were more like going through the motions, like, because like very often it's just a simple, I suppose, mechanism of how the mind works. You get engaged in an activity, and very often it can, in such a short period of time, it can become your habit. And when you're missing that habit, then you kind of, your mind starts questioning, what's wrong? And when you have your self-worth wrapped up in sexuality, which we both share, both experience, then it becomes like, okay, so if I don't make love today, or in other terms, okay, if that was sex, okay, if I don't have sex today, then that means I'm less desirable, and
what is my place in the world?
Yeah, exactly, and exactly. So when it comes to we need to ask ourselves the question whether that comes from our body, our joy of coming in the physical union with the partner, or we just want to do that because we just want release, or we just want to feel like, okay, this is, and it may be as pleasurable as those moments, as those encounters when we actually both, feeling in the moment, but at the same time, over time, those attempts of lovemaking will create that cycle of desire and disappointment, because at some point there will be no time for lovemaking, and as you mentioned, the insatiable appetite is is
something that I wanted to touch on as well, slight conversation swerve a little bit, was that one thing that I found really, really difficult throughout my life is to actually thoroughly express my own desires and my own needs. And I've had quite a lot of my life has been focused on pleasuring my partner. And it's been quite scary, actually, and also liberating, and also very empowering to actually be able to say, no, I like it like this, or not right now,
Right.
or
Exactly.
please do that differently,
Yeah.
or that doesn't feel comfortable right now.
Yeah.
And that is something that I really do wish was pushed a little bit more in schools. I mean, they're teaching sex education, they're talking about, and they don't just touch on the physiology anymore. There is some more sort of stepping into the psychology of it, and the more sort of realistic lived experience. But from what my children have expressed, from what they've been taught at school, there still doesn't seem to be a huge amount of focus on the importance of expressing oneself honestly. And I remember reading something in a book once, and it was a magazine, I think, and it actually struck a chord, and I didn't implement it straight away out of fear more than anything, but it was that if you are giving your partner signals that you're enjoying it when you're not, you're teaching them incorrectly how to pleasure you.
Yeah.
And that is something that has been, not that I've had to give you any guidance at all about how to point that. Too far. Again. But that is something that I wish I'd learned a bit sooner.
The whole episode is a little bit, let's say, what would you call it? Not provocative, but
risque. I don't know.
I think
taboo, controversial.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it actually because I feel that we need to be going into on our podcast into this more like things that are like our personal experiences, but also not very widely talked about. Because anyway, sorry for sidetracking.
No,
you were saying.
No, I was just sort of saying that I do really wish that everybody, men, women, and everything in between, felt the safety to be thoroughly and honestly expressing themselves. And
absolutely.
honestly, that's one thing I would say, regardless of my my stance on body autonomy and do what you will with your own body. If you're not feeling able to honestly express your own desires, needs and wants, you should not be engaging in sex in any form at all.
I would say that but even I know what you mean. I would say that if you do that, then you are taking a massive risk of developing healthy habits and even brain waves and neural pathways that will result in developing like unhealthy connections in your mind about the like giving false signals to your partner about just, I suppose the reason for that would be to kind of also feel desired or feel like you kind of don't want to upset them if they are doing
not
something that you don't like.
Certainly throughout understanding my own psychology, having experienced sexual abuse in childhood, it was often like dangerous to speak my mind.
Of course.
So that has been quite a big thing for me to unpack throughout the years. And being with partners in the past that I've tried to be honest with regarding my apparent inability to orgasm through intercourse, and having felt pressured to lie when I've seen that their ego has been negatively impacted by that little confession of mine, and being pushed into or feeling that I've been pushed into that dishonesty again, because ultimately, I was about to say being pushed into, but ultimately that's giving my power away. It was always my choice. It was always my.
It was safer to do that, right? So,
it felt safer through my own unpacked programming. But I think not expressing oneself and engaging with stuff that we don't feel comfortable with, we don't want to be we're not really enjoying, and sometimes we don't actually feel safe experiencing, is also very much so a form of self-harm.
Absolutely.
And the psychological impact,
self-betrayal, right?
yeah, and the psychological impact of that can be quite catastrophic as well.
You kind of like, instead of building a self-confidence and self-assurance, that safety, you are kind of eroding it. Yeah, exactly.
And so I guess my advice would be to know yourself fully, advocate for your own self, champion for your own self, and don't do anything that you're not enthusiastic to do and that you're not enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. We are being eaten by mosquitoes here.
I was going to say something wholly inappropriate there.
Please do, because I know what you wanted. So.
I think if there is anybody watching this, they probably heard enough about our specific, intimate love making and sexual practices, darling. So I will refrain.
Okay. Okay, your choice.
Right.
I respect that.
Awesome. Is there anything else you would like to add to our discussion today, my love?
Anything else? Yeah, I suppose. I would actually. It's connected to our body image, really, and how we see ourselves, and how we see our bodies, and how we compare our bodies to other people. And this has a connection with pornography as well. As you know, as for the male human being, I definitely engage in enough pornographic content to see that my manhood was not as big as those in the porn movies, and that because my psyche has always been very, like, self-judgment has always been in general part of my story. Then that was another kind of another invitation for my mind, which is always about survival, safety, but also about separation, because it perceives others as a threat, So that was another thing that I've battled with in my mind silently for major part of my of my life, ever since I was I felt sexual urges, which is quite early, but anyway. So I'd like to say that that it's one of the, at least for me, it's one of the most challenging parts of the psyche, because after all we have our psyche is very wrapped up in our animalistic nature as well. So it is connected to the being like a alpha male and things like that, and how you see yourself, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the body that I am not this body. I have chose the body, and this body is perfect as it is, and is
Yes, it is.
and it is, it's amazing. And also, if there was anything different in this body, I would not have chosen this body, because then the experiences I would have in life would be completely different. Even if you just kind of skew your path to the side by 1 degree, at some point you will end up somewhere completely different.
It's interesting as well, actually, because when you talked to me about the insecurities you felt there, I I struggled to relate to an extent because I didn't understand and appreciate how you could have felt inadequate with any aspect of your body. So that for me was a bit like, how? But also actually from a bit of an uncomfortable one for me to go into is that I used to actually have a bigger attachment to size. And it's interesting because, not that you're particularly small, and I'm sorry to put that out there, it's a bit like that, but I don't see why you've had an issue, sorry. But to think that you've went through your life with that insecurity because your manhood has not been as big as some of the genitalia you're seeing on porn, to know that for me I'm experiencing the most magical, satisfying physical relationship I've ever had with anyone, has taught me a lot about the illogical rooting of so much insecurity, but also about my own perceptions as to what is important.
Our bodies are just brilliantly perfect for each other, and that's the main takeaway from this, I think. Otherwise, we would not have so much pleasure, right?
I don't get me wrong, I don't dispute that at all. I do believe that our bodies are absolutely perfect for each other, 100%. But actually, I believe that a lot of our physiological pleasure is rooted in our spiritual connection and the intimacy that we share.
Right.
Like, I think we've both agreed that neither of us have experienced a level of intimacy close to what we share. And that for me has definitely had a huge impact on the amount of physical pleasure.
Absolutely.
Which again is quite an important message that I'd like to sort of get out there, that I'm sure a lot of people are already aware of, but if there's something lacking in your sex life, it's very likely rooted in intimacy or lack thereof.
That connection is so important. You need to feel safe with another person, with the other person, on all levels, in all areas of life, and you just need to feel safe to be yourself, because sex, love making, however you name it, it's another self-expression, another form of self-expression,
and creativity.
And creativity, exactly. So therefore we are if we're not feeling safe in our own skin, then that will obviously show in how we interact with other people and with our partners, and also and that can be healed in relationship, which our relationship has been a massive catalyst for my growth of my self-acceptance and self-confidence and creativity, and going deeper into my soul, and into my heart, opening my heart. Definitely. So relationships are amazing catalysts, can be, because we kind of mirror each other's patterns, or we kind of like have this shadow dance when we are in the shadow frequency. So it's like one kind of like dances with the other, and it's the question of whether we spot that and we want to do something about it, or we just going to be closing ourselves off and kind of building walls around our hearts again, as we did when we were younger. We got some stuff, some flying guys wanting to eat you, baby. I'm jealous.
I don't know how you can be, but
Well, I am a mystery. I am a mystery. Right. Anything else you would like to say?
No, I think yeah, I'm sure there's probably a lot more to cover on this subject, but for now I think we've come to a reasonable close for the day.
Okay, cool.
You?
Yeah, I think we are done.
Awesome.
Mm.
Any questions, any input, any personal experiences to share, please do be sure to pop that in the comments.
Yes,
and,
we would love to engage more with the viewers, and if you have any suggestions around the topic that we just talked on and would like us to talk more in details, I mean like going into like sub themes or subtopics of this particular subject, then please let us know in the comments and we'll see how we feel about it, and maybe we'll talk about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay guys, ciao for now. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Bye bye.